welcome back to the Thriftington Post. My name is Lantis, and this week I've been playing Link Between Worlds. I can't believe that after all this time they finally released a new Zelda game that doesn't have some kind of weird gimmicky way to control it, like the ones on Wii where you had to use the Wii emote to swing your sword around, or the other Game Boy ones where you're like poking at the screen to move and attack, and those were interesting. I just wish that they hadn't put that type of stuff in a Zelda game. Just make a different game that controls like that. I don't know. This one, though, you finally can just use the D-pad and the buttons to run around and do things again. And great, cool. I can actually control Link the way I'm used to controlling Link, the way I've always controlled him for all those years leading up to whenever they first began to gimmickify the entire game. Speaking of gimmicks, I will say off the bat that I do like the whole 2D moving through the walls thing better than the, what was it in the last one? In Spirit Tracks, you had a train, right? The train was okay. Actually, I will say one anecdote about it was I played Spirit Tracks on Christmas, and it occurred to me while I was on the train, it's like, well, what's the most prototypical Christmas present to get? A train, right? So, hey, I actually have a train to play with for Christmas. So even though I didn't really like the train, I did like the train just for that, I guess. But that was Spirit Tracks. This is Link to the Past? No, that was the game that this is the sequel of. This is Link Between Worlds, and if you did play Link to the Past, you will notice a lot of things that looks very similar here in this new world. That's not really new. It's the old one, but it's not quite. It's strange. It's like, have you ever had a dream where you're somewhere that you're familiar with, your own house for a good example, and it's sort of where you've always been, but at the same time everything is slightly off. Things aren't where they should be, there's rooms where they shouldn't be, doors are missing where they should be. Everything is the same, but just different in small ways, and then in large ways the deeper in you get. That's this game. That's Link Between Worlds. You wander through this game, and everything is like, I was bombarded by nostalgia because I did play Link to the Past back in the day. I actually played it back before I was even remotely good at games. So it took me like all summer to finish Link to the Past. The very first time I played it, which would have made me, I want to say about 13 years old, maybe 12. I don't know. It was sometime way back when though, right? So, I'm fairly familiar with that game because I spent a lot of time in it. And now with this one, I'm seeing that world that I lived in for so long way back when. Though there were points where knowledge of the past game was a little detrimental to gameplay, right? Like, because you knew how things had occurred before, you started to feel like you could make assumptions about how certain puzzles were done. The guy running really fast through the village, right? I thought, well, I'll just wait till I get the speed boots and then I can catch him. And so I just didn't really look at him. I didn't pay any attention to him. In the last game, you caught him by running at him with the speed boots. So I figure, okay, as soon as I get the speed boots, that's how I catch him. Because of this, I was nearly done with the entire game before a thought occurred to me, oh, I could just merge in with the wall, come around, and pop out on him. And so I did that, and then I got the speed boots. The speed boots which would have come in handy like 7 dungeons earlier. The other thing I want to mention is the idea of how they decided to take all the weapons in the game, all the equipment, the gear that Link usually gets going through dungeons, and put them all in a shop. Now this is sort of an interesting idea, ramping up the death penalty in these games, because I mean, I don't know. Usually you die in a Zelda game, you go back to the start of a dungeon, everything's been cleared the way you left it, I think, and then, you just run back to where you were, no sweat. So they decided to ramp up the challenge, I guess, by saying you lose all your gear if you die. But how often do people really die in Zelda games? It's not that often. Fighting enemies and taking damage has never really been the challenge. It's always been about the puzzles. Like, how do I get through this room? Where do I go next? Where's the key to that door? Those are that's the challenge, right? The bottleneck of progression in a Zelda game is how quickly you can figure out what you're supposed to do, not whether or not you can get past a certain enemy. One exception being those things on the bridge that breathe fire. That actually threw me off guard. I didn't expect their flamethrower to hit that hard, but I had a bottled fairy, so I quickly got up and got out of there. That was on, what, Death Mountain? But anyway, so if the death penalty is not really a thing, then now what you're looking at is all your character progression comes through acquiring rupees. Okay, that's good. For once, rupees are they actually have a value in this game. In other Zelda games, it always felt like rupees didn't really mean much, but this is all kind of offset by how easy they are to collect in this game. Like, if you spend 20 minutes farming bees, you could buy the world. And then there's the Dark World Gambling House. For whatever reason, the odds are skewed in your favor, not in the house's favor, like in, I guess, real gambling. So if you sit there and you keep playing that game over and over again, you will, in the long run, always come out ahead. You can sit there for no time and cap out on rupees. Either way, whichever method you use, it kind of defeats the purpose. The idea, I guess, was that as you go through the game, you find chests with rupees in them, and through those chests, you can slowly have the rupees required to buy the next item and the next item. But really, you can just bee farm and hand in all those rupees, or once you have the Dark World house, get enough rupees to buy the permanent versions of all the items, and that makes the death penalty thing completely moot. But either way, you get them, you never die, and so that just it makes you feel really good early on, as because it's like a huge infusion of character power to Link, and then you get no progression through the dungeons. I mean, yeah, you get the hearts at the end of them, but the items was what really made dungeons cool, right? Like, what will I get in this dungeon? What will I get in that dungeon? And now all of that's taken out and put into the shop, and I guess that's about it for the show this week. If you'd like to get in touch with me, I can be found on Twitter at Lantis Armstrong. That's LentisArmstrong. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.